what's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. I'm your host, Malynda, and I'm joined by my co-host, Karmel.
Hello, everybody.
And today in studio, a very dear friend of mine who I just realized I have not actually physically seen in 9 years.
Wow.
I know, so you're like, how is she a very good friend? We literally talk every day. Like, no joke, we talk every day, but I have not seen this woman in 9 years. But joining us today is my very good friend. She is an urban agriculture advocate. She's also a singer, incredible vocalist, and she is the host of Kinda Hippie, Kinda Hood podcast, my dear friend Siri Hirth.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, thanks for joining us. How was everyone's weekend?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah?
It was good. Started off with the Joker. I had to go see that.
Oh, yeah, how was that?
It was intense.
There's been so many
intense.
like mixed messages on like how people have received it.
I loved it. It was very, I shouldn't say realistic, but it made sense.
I can't wait to see it.
I'm behind the times, you guys. I haven't been to the theater since like Twilight. Like,
Wow.
Okay, wait. Back up a second.
Hold on.
She said Twilight. Not even like
Breaking Dawn, but
like I
Yeah,
mean, she
Twilight.
said Twilight. Not even you didn't even finish the
She
series.
could have just said Titanic.
Right.
I ain't been in a movie since. When did E.T. come out?
Like,
My
whoa.
bad.
Whoa. But do you rent at home? Are you a Netflix
I do
person?
Netflix
Hulu?
and Hulu. So like, I usually
Okay.
wait for it to come out, watch it at home.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
But that's funny.
Some
That
movies-
was like
I feel like some movies you have to see in a theater.
absolutely.
Sure.
There's
Absolutely.
a sense of feel of it.
Black
But I don't think
Panther.
Twilight was
Yes.
one of those. Did
No.
you see Black Panther?
Girl, no, I watched it at home. I
No,
really
you
missed the mark for sure. I got
didn't.
cute at home.
See, okay, so there's this rule that I have. If you're not going to go to the theater, that's fine. But there's certain movies you have to support.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Panther 2, you better be in that theater.
I'll
yes,
go.
Okay.
Have to.
You have to contribute because we got to get
Absolutely.
those numbers up. I mean,
Yeah, I paid for it 4 times.
me
just
too.
because.
Amazing.
because.
I did 2 regular, then I did 1 3D, then I did the 4D one.
40.
Yeah, the 4D one had the seats move, and like when they're like
Okay.
flying and stuff, it moves
Okay.
with you. They spray you with water, they spray you with air. They have like different scents.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
theaters weren't doing that
It's
when
a
I was
whole
going to
experience.
see Twilight.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if I want, like,
Twilight.
Water hitting me like it's fake blood. That would be kind of weird.
That's what it
Twilight.
was. Yeah.
Oh,
when
no.
Oh, that's true. That's funny with Twilight. Yeah.
I wouldn't
Oh,
want
no,
blood
yeah.
on me.
No vampire 4D.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
right,
gonna
right.
go
That's
ahead
not gonna work.
and say that.
That's not gonna work.
Well, today, what I want to talk about is something that I've been recently, for some reason in 2019, attacked very much so on social media for. And I want to talk about interracial relationships.
Okay. Okay.
Now, all 3 of us have been in interracial relationships or are in interracial relationships.
sure.
And I find it so surprising that still in 2019, it is an issue for people. I'm like, when are we going to get past this? And what a lot of the things that I've actually received have been animosity from Black men specifically, which was also surprising, but basically saying that my Blackness is negated by the fact that I'm married to a white man.
Sure.
And so any of the like social justice fighting that I'm doing or anything that I'm standing for really doesn't count because I'm quote unquote sleeping with the enemy.
Right. You know, it's my question is, what do we need to do to push past it? Because it is an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
And I think since the institutionalization of slavery in general, slave masters sleeping with their slaves
Yeah.
and having children, you know, it completely changed the narrative on interracial relationships. And I too have had the same challenges as you had, and it's mostly come from the Black community. And I find Black women, and maybe it's because I'm a Black woman, so it's my personal experience.
Right.
But my Black men friends or my white women friends who date Black men, I don't hear as much pushback from them on other people's perspectives.
Same.
You know, and I don't understand it. I don't even know how to understand it, to be honest.
Do you, Karmel, have you received any animosity on your end when you've dated interracially?
Yes, definitely. I've been in a couple of restaurants. I'll never forget a restaurant and 3 Black women walked in and gave the date I was with like 35,000 level of evil eye. It was so heavy. I didn't see it because like I was eating, but then I looked up and it kind of looked away, and I looked at her, and it was, you could just see whatever they sent was just all over her. And I was like, what? And then I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, we're still doing that. Like, for real, like still. And
Still.
What I feel like a lot of it is like an entitlement. Like there's like ownership. So like I know I've seen white men look at me if I'm with a white woman. I know Black women look at a white woman like that's mine or that's ours. and oh, you got one. Oh, so it's almost like they lost one. I'm like, it's really not that.
Right.
But I think that's what a lot of it feels like that you got one of ours. So yeah, I felt it. And it was pretty recent. So it's kind of upsetting still.
Do you feel, I mean, again, we're Black women, so these are our experiences, but I do feel like Black women get it more than Black men, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's more of a common thing for a Black man to be with a white woman, and it would be a little bit more socially acceptable than for a white woman to be with a Black woman to be with a white man for some reason.
I think that's because, well, it's almost like a badge of honor, I guess, for a Black man to get a white woman, right? So then for a Black woman to like go with a white man, you're like, why would you do that? It's almost like you chose the lesser of the two.
So I want to go into that a little
Yes.
because there was a Black man that I dated a little before I met John. I was with him about a year and a half, and one of the things he said to me, he's like, "Oh, when if you're a Black man and you get on top, like the first thing you want to get is a white woman." And I was so offended by that, and I was like, "So what are we doing?"
Right.
So basically you're saying you're not successful, you're not on top because you're with me. So why do you think that mindset is there?
I don't know why, and I've read this before in books, and I always bring up the ISIS papers several times, and Dr. Franz Walking mentions this in the book about how it's kind of again drawn back to slavery, and like it's like a Black man to have risen out of slavery and to get the ultimate prize of the white man, which would be the white woman, shows like I've accomplished the ultimate goal.
So it's like a form of equality almost?
I guess. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't make any sense to
right.
me. It's
Right.
super. I've never thought that.
Right.
Never thought that.
Right.
I've heard the opposite, where when I date white men, my husband's white, it's, well, what does he have to gain? So it must be pure love, because in the eyes of the white person, they've got nothing to gain from the Black person.
That's interesting.
Very. And I hadn't even thought of it until somebody
until
said
you just
to me.
said it.
Right.
I've never heard that before.
I was like, well, he's got all kinds of stuff to gain, actually. But,
Right. Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for Black women, when you're with a white man, a lot of people are like, oh, she's trying to get privilege and power. She's trying to, not be viewed as a certain way in society. And it's like, I promise you that's not it.
Absolutely
I just
not.
happened. I didn't even like my husband when I met him. Okay. So like, I was not like setting my sights on being with a white man. I've dated all kinds of races.
Sure.
This just happens to be the one that even after he insulted me and I did not like him, I just happened to get engaged to him and married to him for the last 8 years. It just worked out that way. I'm just letting y'all know, okay? So I find it interesting that people tend to think that. But I do want to go back to, because we always got to go back to slavery, because that's when all this stuff starts. We feel like, I mean, I get that a lot of people think, like, why would you be with, the race that oppressed you?
Right.
Why would you be with the race that views you as this? And it's like, we can't on one hand say, we as Black people, not all Black people are like this, but then we can't say that about white people, because there are good white people, obviously.
For sure.
We both married one. You've dated them. You're dating one, so why do we continue to have that kind of mindset?
Lack of healing.
That's
I really
real.
think it stems from being able to heal and educate ourselves and the people we love and know, to understand where something started and where it is now and how not to perpetuate the BS.
I think we
I
really
agree with
get the slavery knot in and of itself needs to be untied and let things flow through. We understand it happened. We understand, but prior to that, our cultures and ethnicity and groups were all intermingling
Exactly,
way before slavery.
Way before. It was all gravy before that happened.
It was fine. I mean, the Moors came through,
Yep.
Spain and Italy and Northern Africa. The whole thing was fine until slavery. So I hate that we use slavery as this thing that, like, it's almost a yoke around our necks to stop us from doing a lot of things. And I have a lot of people say, well, how, no one can understand the Black man struggle like a Black woman. Okay, but there's also other ethnic groups who've had their own struggles that we can still relate and have some kind of common ground, whether it's Arabs or Asians or whatever. And at the end of the day, I don't honestly care sometimes. Like, I just hung out with this person. There's a connection. I like them. They like me. And then not all Black people are for me.
Right.
So, like, why do I have to always just assume that I have to be with someone who's Black because I'm Black? Because there's a lot of Black folks who aren't with our struggle.
Right.
There's just a level of, like, what do we want? We want to be treated as equals. We want to be on the same, playing field. But then when it comes to these relationships, it's like there's a certain part that's not allowed. It just has never really made sense to me. Like, what do we want? We got to make a decision, you know?
Yeah, people think in order to be equal, you have to be silent in a way, you know, and you can't talk about the actual pain and the things that have gotten you to feel how you feel and in your life experience. So, allowing a forum for the conversation to happen is very important, but also it gets exhausting having the conversation over and over because it's like, why aren't you all doing your work and asking one another what you've done to contribute to where we are in society?
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think I read an article not too long ago, but kind of showed where we as a human race are going to be in the United States and how mixed everybody is going to be. Like the aesthetic of humans in like I think even 2030 it was as soon as going to be that everybody's going to have a shade of brown almost in their skin. And I don't know why that scares white people so much. It really does. It's like, but you're always trying to get a tan anyway, so I'm not really understanding why this is bothering you.
It's way easier to get it this way.
Well, I think it's the fear of actually acknowledging the BS. You know what I mean?
Well, like, they don't want to. Yeah.
If everybody's brown, then what has all the other stuff been for?
For sure.
And they definitely don't want to experience those struggles or acknowledge some of them. You know,
that is a very, very true statement. Well, because nobody wants to have guilt.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah,
and that's what
it's
it comes
hard
down
to address. It really is. That's doing
is.
some deep personal work to acknowledge your stuff.
Right. Absolutely. But I think, so I would say the benefit of interracial relationships, at least in my experience, I think learning about somebody else's culture and being exposed to somebody else's race is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think, and we've talked about this several times on the podcast, the more you're surrounded by people that aren't like you, the sooner we will actually get to some sort of peace and harmony.
Yeah,
you know? But when people are so afraid and everybody, you know, whites stay together, blacks stay together, the more segregated we are, the worse off we are, honestly.
And I think it's hilarious that we have a lot of families and groups that have migrated to America and then segregate themselves.
Right.
It's like, you're going to come here and then, no, I can only be with my people. Why don't you just stay where you're from?
Right.
Or like black folks, like, no, you can only stay with black people. Like, where none of us are trying to go back to Africa. Right. We're in a country where it's a humongous melting pot, more so than any other country. And I like the term intercultural dating than interracial.
Okay.
You know, because that's really what it is. Like, because what's really the black race? There's so much, whether you're Caribbean, whether you're from Alabama or you're from Nigeria. There's so much of us that's not just black. So it's really more an intercultural relationship. And I think the more we do that, honestly, these things will start to go away. The problem is people want to hold on to these ideas and these moralities and these beliefs that we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, the generalization that we're all the same.
Yes.
You know, like
yes.
I'm vegetarian. And that's not popular in the opinion of most black people.
I mean, I'm vegan, so I'm even
so
one
you get it.
more than you. So I'm really.
I mean, if I could shake butter, that's where we would be. And so, like, you know, so even that contributes to how relationships go as well. You know,
absolutely. It's so funny. I'm going to digress a little bit, but I saw a comment on Instagram. Basically, was like, why are we worrying about, you know, climate change and global warming and veganism and everything? That's a white people thing. And I was like, don't we all live here?
Yikes.
Like, yes, that's what I said. I was like, don't we all live here? We're
Now,
all breathing the same air.
Yeah.
We all are on this earth. Like, I don't know how
do
you think white people
it's
think.
their thing to fix because they run the world? Is that
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. But
see, I think of it more like black people aren't involved in those areas,
those conversations
that people don't think black people are involved in those conversations.
Right.
And so then they say it's a black people thing. I can't tell you how many times I've invited my black friends to beach cleanups or yoga retreats. And they're like, I don't know why you do this white people stuff. I don't, because my well-being is wonderful for having participated in yoga and it's not a white people thing. Let's do some history on the practice. So it's
yoga definitely ain't no white people
thing. Brown as hell. So like if I think in our culture as well, it's us doing it to ourselves, you know?
Yeah. So how do we get past that?
Oof.
How do we get past that as a people?
Black
individual
culture?
Yes.
It's
with just having these wrong ideals, I guess, of what is black, what is white. Like,
do you think it's our lineage, our ancestors, how it's been passed down to us, what our parents' ideals were?
I don't know. That's a good
I
question.
think a lot of it is, the kind of this. Yeah, it's part of what's that's passed down to us, and our culture is this, and this is what we do. We're hip hop, we're basketball, we're
Right.
jazz, we're whatever. But then, like, even having started a coffee business and done some history and learning that coffee started in Ethiopia,
Right.
and I've had so many people tell me, "Black people drink coffee." I'm like, we started it. We invented this thing. But
Right.
then
Oh, wow.
we don't now hold on to that culture. It's kind of was taken from us. So that's a thing I'm trying to do is bring back some of the things we don't understand that we actually started.
Right.
So a lot of it's just exposure. Just like I expose my kids to classical music every single day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Good
we
for
listen
you.
to classical music.
Good for
Every
you.
day,
And I
my
teach them,
guy.
right?
Yes,
Every day I
absolutely.
teach them about the composer, even the company that's playing the music, Baroque versus this, so they can
Yes.
hear it and understand it. And now you hear them mention, oh, that's Camille Saint-Saëns, and that's such and such. I'm like, oh, okay, they're
Yes,
picking
you better
it up,
Yes.
teach.
right?
You better teach.
It's just exposure. So the more we get them involved, I think they start realizing it's not about this. It's a black thing. It's a
Yeah.
me thing, and I'm black.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
You better preach.
I'm trying. It's Sunday, right?
So, Siri, in your experience, what has been the hardest thing about being in an interracial relationship?
I used to think it was outside opinions and what
Yeah.
people had to say. But the longer I'm married, the longer we're in our relationship, the more I unpack our own personal things that we've been taught to believe and how it contributes to our everyday life. And so, honestly, making sure that my mate and I have open dialogue. If he says something that I'm like, you cannot say that, we need to have a conversation and be able to say, you cannot say that.
Right.
And here's why, and actually educate one another. And I'm still learning too, because I'll say something. He's like, Siri,
You can't say
our
that.
son is, and so you can't say that.
Right,
You know?
right,
So,
right,
like, I'm
right.
still learning too.
Right.
But I think that's it for me is staying even keel with my partner and making sure that we're kosher, because we have massively different backgrounds. And I come from a very mixed race family, and he comes from an all white family. And we grew up in the same town and had way different life experiences. So it's really unpacking those things. How did we grow up in the same community with schools down the street from each other, with a ton of the same friends, and have massively different
Right.
lives,
And in raising your son, how has, being a black woman then having a white father, how has that impacted him? Like, what do you teach him?
It's interesting. When we moved from Long Beach to the Valley in May, and we lived in a very diverse community. You could see a plethora of people. That's what I
Everyone, yeah.
loved about Long Beach. And when we moved to the Valley, it changed. It very much changed. And I didn't think our son would notice, but he noticed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And what I found him saying was, "Oh, he looks like us," or "That kid, he has curly hair like I do." And he would notice those things, where when in Long Beach, he never mentioned anything.
Yeah.
He never mentioned that Patrick and I look different than one another. He never mentioned that he looked different than us. And so, we just kind of address it like, yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why you look like this. Here's what we do. He's so easy breezy. And so I think it's maybe his age, where everything is kind of like a sponge, and he's inquisitive. So
Yeah.
he's open to
How old is
learning
he?
more. He's 7.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
And
7.
your kids are interracial. How have you raised them as far as like embracing and knowing what both sides of their lineage are?
I think a lot of it was actually getting them more exposed to white culture,
Right.
because black culture is very dominant. You can see it and feel it.
Right.
But then I had them ask me, well, what's white culture? Like, what are we supposed to celebrate? And I'm like, well, your mom's part French and she's part German, so here's what that looks like. And then getting them to celebrate, and me celebrating it. Because I think a lot of black folks also feel like it's weird if we celebrate white culture.
Right.
I don't know why. Like, we like their food, I like their wine.
Well, I
Their
think it's
cars.
because, like, you just hit it on, and I'm gonna let you finish. Sorry, but when you're saying French and German, that to me is different than American white culture.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh, yeah.
even
Yeah.
I don't even think of that as white culture, because it goes international for
Yes.
me. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So yeah, keep going. But that's why I think that it is.
Yeah, and so then also showing them that distinction about what's different between America and Europe.
Yeah.
Why is this white and why is that not white? It is all white, and that's, again, it's a lot of this comes from a whole nother topic we can get into about segregating white and black.
Yeah.
But like, it's celebrating things and them seeing me do it,
Right.
and then teaching them more about, again, what is black history, what's black culture. It's not just it's not just hip hop and basketball. It's Kemet. It's like Alexander Dumas things that they didn't even think were black people did these
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Like these things are black as well. Remember we were in a shop in City of Orange, and it's an antique shop, and there was a statue of Isis. My daughter said, "Oh, there's Osset," and the guy noticed that she said Osset instead of ISIS. And he's like, "How do you know about that?" And I explained to them, I taught them about Kemet over a summer and the original names of all these the goddess and all that. And he was so enamored that we know that. And my daughters now don't
It's
know
important,
it. It's
right?
very important. And they don't know it any other way. But that's on me to do that.
Yeah.
I think the parents have to take that responsibility.
And they're definitely not going to learn it
Absolutely.
in school.
Not
Right.
at all. Not at all.
Right.
So that's on us. And it just, again, the exposure, learning to celebrate it and not be afraid of it. Because I know a lot of black folks would be like, "Oh, I'm not teaching them nothing about white folks."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, why?
Not acknowledging it
you
makes
know-
it disappear.
Right,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of be devil's advocate here for a little bit. I think the reason being is because white culture actually is kind of what rules everything in this country. So black people may feel that you don't need to teach them a white culture because that's kind of what we have to get acclimated
It's a
to
benchmark,
anyways.
right.
It's the benchmark for everything here. You know, and even though, yes, black culture does influence a lot of things as well because white people appropriate it, and that's also another conversation that we would have on a different podcast. But I think that that's probably why. And because I would be more inclined when we have our child in the spring to make sure that they feel confident in their black culture because they're going to see white culture in their schools, in everything that they see in stores and everything. So I think that that's why. I mean, at least from my perspective.
No, I get that. And so I guess me teaching them about it shows that I'm not scared of it.
Right.
It doesn't bother me.
I like, yeah, that's
You
a good
know,
way to
so
look
they
at it
And
too.
you've done the work.
Right, I've done
to
the work.
understand it
Exactly.
yourself.
For
So
sure.
when they see me acting a certain way, they won't be that. That's the
Right.
only way we're going to be able to change the global conscious of that, because it's not going to happen when people are 67 years old. That's not going to
No,
happen.
yeah.
Our kids can start that change. So I have to get them to start thinking that's their reflex is not to be scared, or I have to think twice about something. And I actually have them ask questions in school, like challenge their teachers about what that really means, what this really means, because they're not going to do that unless, again, it starts at home.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
100%.
And especially in schools, I mean, there's always going to be a lack of information that's shared. And like we've talked about this before, but even like in Texas, when they're trying to admit like what actually happened.
Right.
Did you see those books?
Yes.
I'm like, how are you going to say that these were unpaid workers? Are
Right.
we really
Right.
trying to rewrite
Yes.
history like that?
Absolutely. And I they think they can because they can. They have.
And that's
You know,
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
a cycle.
But that's that level of guilt that I was talking about. They're like, okay, well, let's just change this so we don't have to seem as bad as we
Yeah.
actually were.
Sure,
And it's like,
sure.
no,
No.
it was
It
as
was
bad
terrible.
as, it was.
And that's another thing I've done with my son, who's now an adult, is to show them how bad it really was.
Yeah.
So I had him watch all the Hidden Color videos.
Oh wow.
And,
Tariq, right?
Yeah,
Tariq Nasheed.
Tariq Nasheed. And he was like he couldn't take it. He had
Yeah.
to stop a couple of them. Says, "Okay, take a break, but finish them, because this is the stuff you're gonna have to deal with as a black man." And as he's grown up, and he's a lot darker now. I tell him he's got his spots now. He's almost
stripes.
my color. He got his
I love
stripes,
it.
right?
I love it. I love it.
He looks very black.
Yeah.
He's got this, not the dreads, but he has this kind of weird hairstyle going. He's tall. I mean, bro, when you walk outside, that's what people see.
Right.
So you have to
Right.
be prepared for their reaction. And,
Right.
and a lot of it comes when you see that, it's from this. So he's now like, okay, I get it now. Like before, he would just walk around Orange County like no big deal.
Right.
You know, the 6'4" looking black dude he's thinking he's white, which is really funny because he's around his mom and his grandma who are white. And then he looks in the mirror and says, oh, damn, like
Right.
that's what I look like. So I've also feel like some people, when they look at black folks who are not scared, they almost feel like we're like disconnecting ourselves from black people, which is not the case. And I think you get that sometimes when you married a white man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not connected with my race anymore. I'm like, no,
Right.
I think I'm more so.
Absolutely.
I think I'm more connected to my race and our struggle and
Absolutely.
what we're doing. Because
I'm more aware. That's
I'm
for
more
sure.
aware.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am more
child,
aware.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like I don't have to be wearing a daishiki all the time and marry
Sure.
a black woman to
Sure.
understand what we're going through. Like it doesn't bother me, you know.
I will say I feel like I've definitely, not that I was ever anti-black, obviously, but I've definitely become more pro-black being married to John than I ever have in my life. Because I do see the difference in how he's treated for certain things and then how I'm treated.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, excuse me, like for example, our company that we run, which I say we loosely because it really is me. I love him, bless his heart. But we'll do showcases for clients, and they'll start talking to John, and he's a lawyer. He's like, oh, so you run on the company, and he'll be the first to be like, no, like it's her, you know, but it's just that assumption that because he's the white male, he has the JD law degree,
Right,
that
right.
I'm not the one that's running everything. It's like,
Right.
no, I actually am the boss. I'm in charge of all of these people. I make sure they get paid. I'm the one that books them. I'm the one that's doing your contract and all that
Right.
stuff. And it's just crazy. And so it's made me be definitely an advocate, you know, for Black people, for Black business owners. That's why you're famous in my circle. Karmel, everybody knows about Black Brew.
What's up?
Go get some coffee.
Yes,
but I think
yes.
that's important. I think it's very important. So that's, I mean, for me, that's uplifting Black culture. I don't want to say over white culture, but just uplifting Black culture is very important.
You're making it more the norm. I think
Right.
even in
Yes, yes,
films,
yes.
we're starting to see now, whether it's Tyler Perry having his own studio, Jordan Peele's and Ava DuVernay's,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
putting more faces out there
Right.
in normal situations. Like it didn't always have to be a Black situation or a Black type movie. It's just a movie.
You
Just
bring up a great point.
Yes.
You do,
Yes,
because
yes.
you know, if you look back in the history of movies portraying interracial couples, it was always stuff like Guess Who's Coming for Dinner, and like completely
Fever.
surrounded Jungle
Yes,
Fever,
Jungle
all Jungle Fever, all around stereotypes. Not that those aren't, some of them are legit, but it's like all based around the falseness of things. It's very different. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
We're definitely seeing more interracial relationships in TV and film. And do you think it's because it's more common in society now?
Is it more common, or is it just people are more exposed? You know what I mean? We have social media, more ways to see how people are living their lives.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, my family is very, very mixed race. And so that's all I've known, you know.
What is your family comprised of?
Mostly Black and white.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I mean, my entire family, my grandmother had a white husband, like long line of interracial relationships. So I wonder, you know, if it's just that we're seeing it more, so we see it more.
I know one reason why we're seeing it more is because it's controversial.
Yeah.
So I know
Well, yeah,
it
that's
definitely
true.
brings eyes to it, but I think also they're more comfortable with that controversy now because we're seeing it more, because we see it on social media. We're seeing like celebrities who are now who can't hide their interracial relationship.
Right.
Like back in the day, you didn't know if
Yeah.
a singer or white and Black were dating, but now it's Kim and Kanye and whoever Travis Scott is dating today. But you know, it's fine now. We see it, and it's okay, and it's almost celebrated.
Yeah.
And my family is very diverse. My mom's, my stepdad is Mexican. My brother's wife is Honduran, and my kid's mom is like I said, white. So it's, again, in my family, all the kids have seen this, and it's
Right.
like it's not a big deal to see someone else coming in the family. I think it also be a big difference about a Black woman home,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
kind of interesting now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That
I actually
you
think that would
so.
have been a bigger shock to mine.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. Not for not having been interested in Black men, but just for the men I dated who were willing or interested in committing were usually white men.
White men.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely dated more white guys than any other race.
Yeah.
It was mixed for sure, but also like you have to look at your upbringing. Like I grew up in Santa Barbara, and so like at first my dad would have an issue with me dating white guys. I'm like, where did you raise us?
But where's the
where
rest?
where did
Right.
you plant your roots?
Exactly.
Please take me and find me a Black man in this city, because I will try it out and see
Right.
how it goes. But right now there is no picking, so this is what you're gonna have to do it. So that always made me laugh, because I'm like, we're literally in the liliest white town on the coast of California,
Right.
and you're upset that I'm bringing home a white guy. What?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
I never
sure.
understand it. And I've seen
For
that with,
sure.
so I mentioned that earlier. I've seen that with so many families. Like you
Yeah.
came to this country and then you're trying to still be stuck in your own environment.
Right.
Right. Like 1% of the population
Yeah.
is that thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like I don't get it.
Yeah.
But overall, how would you feel your experiences dating interracially have been and being married
It
interracially?
was great.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't really look at the race.
Right.
I think
you look at the person.
I look at the person, whether they've been Black or Asian or white or whatever. I've never even thought about it till maybe the third or fourth date. I even bring it up. Like, what do you mix with? What's your background? What's your
Right.
ethnicity? I think people see us and they automatically know, okay, you're Black. But like, I've never thought twice about it. And I think most of my friends and family have never brought it up. So it's been fine for me. Again, the situation, even my kid's mom, when we were married, like, you know, from time to time we would have issues with people on the outside
Right.
that we didn't know. I remember a time she went to Carl's Jr. with the kids once, and some old white guy said, what are you doing with those nigger babies? And
Oof.
like that. And she called me hysterical and crying, yada yada, and told me what happened. I immediately jumped in the car, drove over there. The kids were fine.
Right.
They were sitting in the car, just like eating fries,
Just the emotional
whatever.
impact.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she was like shaking, and I'm like, okay, well that's one. That's one. This has been my whole life.
Right.
So like, just get ready for it. And as the kids got older and got darker, and she went to school and they thought she was a nanny, and where's your mom at? All that stuff. And it's just like, I said, this is part of what it's gonna be. So just setting a standard for her, an expectation that this is what's gonna happen. And again, not being so like stressed about it. Like I remember I would tell her, we're probably gonna be sitting in the back of the restaurant when we go to this one spot. We used to say that all the time. And over time, she started realizing, hey, we are in the back. And I was just laughing. Yeah, it's like no big deal, whatever. We just have fun with it.
You just go with it.
Just go with the flow. Yeah. So it's just setting an expectation about it. It helps a lot. But I've never had really any bad issues with anyone's.
I'm actually surprised that she would get mistaken for the nanny, because I would think that they would just think like she adopted the kids.
She adopted them, yeah.
Because it's always, always, anytime I'm with my godchildren who are white, because my best friend growing up was white, because again, I grew up in Santa Barbara. Anytime I'm with them, they would assume that I'm the nanny. And I got to start clapping back one of these days and be like, if I were white, would you have asked me that?
Same.
Because I don't think they would have.
Yeah. That's the season I'm getting into, is the clapback age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where I have a lot more to say about it when people say things like that.
Because it's happened with you, with your son.
A lot. And I'm originally from Iowa. And so, right.
Yeah.
And so, so we got nothing there.
Yes.
Nothing. No backlash, no commentary, nothing. And then when we moved back to Los Angeles, that's when people, are you the nanny? Oh, he looks just like his dad. What's his mom? Nope, I'm his mom.
Wow.
Yeah. And from all communities, it's not just from white women or black men or anything. It's across the board. I've gotten feedback on our family dynamic.
Wow.
Yeah.
People
quite
are
interesting.
very bold.
Ooh. Ooh, and I think sometimes if I were so bold, if I were so bold to comment on somebody's physicality and their family dynamic, like what would the response be from someone, from someone whose culture is known for being too loud or too whatever, you know?
And that's the thing. And again, this is a whole nother podcast, but we always have to kind of maintain our reactions a bit, because we don't want people to put us into that stereotype.
Right.
Yeah.
And think we are the angry black woman. But like, if you were on this other side and you always had to hear the crap that you just said to me, you would be angry too.
Right.
Right. I can't even imagine. And like, when we have our kid, I'm like fully expecting to get the nanny comment. But I will clap back because I've already reached my limit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've already reached my limit.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We don't really see this issue in interracial relationships in the gay community. At least I don't feel it. I haven't seen or heard it as intense as it is.
That's interesting. I think they have their own set of problems.
Sure.
But and we're actually going to be having, this is one of the topics we're going to have coming up, just racism in the LGBTQ community. But I don't think it is because there's so many racists fighting for the same common goal with other issues that I don't think that they're really focusing on that. I even think
from like outside, even like heterosexual people, white, whatever, don't look at a gay man, black and white,
because they're more worried about the fact that they're gay,
correct,
than they are about their
which
race.
is so weird.
Right.
That, okay, the gay shade is allowing me to look at this and be okay with it.
Not
it's
the
just
gay
so
shade.
Gay shade.
It's stupid. Like, oh, that's okay because they're both gay. They're both two guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they already think that they're quote unquote going to hell. So they're like, you're just going to go to hell twice.
Well, but do you think that's what it's about, though? The ability to procreate and then change the face of society. Maybe they don't care because that's not a direct...
There's nothing that can come from that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, because I think the whole issue that people have with...
Lineage.
Lineage and preserving a race, if
family
white
name,
people
that
think,
kind of
the
thing.
Aryan race is the pure race, or black people are like, no, you got to keep the black race, we're going to become an endangered species soon type stuff. That's interesting. Maybe they think of it from a procreation standpoint. That's a very good point.
That makes sense.
Ooh, I got to talk to some of my
I know I got friends, I got questions.
Right. I had never considered that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very valid point. But you're right. They really don't have to face the same issues.
Or maybe we're just not aware of it because that's not our daily struggle.
I guess so.
You know?
I've never heard it mentioned. That's
No, I haven't either.
I mean, there's definitely, like I said, there's racism within the LGBT community and there's homophobia in the Black community, for sure. But as far as interracial goes, no.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that. If y'all have heard it listening, please let us know. Because we're curious to know about that stuff.
And then like interracial relationships outside of America. Like I don't know much about that either.
Same.
Okay.
I would say in our experience in Europe, it's always been fine. And everyone I know that lives in Europe or has gone to Europe, they've never had an issue. And it's just way more accepted. It's just not. I mean, also, they don't have the same history that we do, obviously. So it's a little different. I do think that America's views of Black people in general probably have spread to other continents, but not as badly as it is here, you know? So that's probably why. But yeah, every time we've traveled internationally, never had an issue whatsoever. I don't know why it is, but
I think I think it's because like we said before slavery in other parts of the world, this was normal.
Right.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I think it's just here. It's just American culture.
Some bad habits.
how important do you think it is for if it's a Black and white relationship specifically, because that's what we've all been in, for the white side to really embrace and get to know the culture of the other race?
Yo, like more now than ever have I found it important.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially when children are involved. Prior to my husband, race, spirituality, Christianity, politics has always been like, right. That's like first thing out of my mouth, out the gate. And I realized just recently, and we've been married 9 years, and something like that. And I just realized I didn't lead with that in this relationship. And so as things have progressed, slowly things get unpacked. And I learned things that I probably would have learned much sooner if I would have led with my typical, well, what do you believe in? What's your family believe in? How were you raised? Those kind of questions. So I'm still learning. Like I'm still learning, and my husband is definitely still learning as he wakes up and understands more. Especially being the father to a half Black kid, he doesn't know what that's like. He's not had to be raised in a Black household. He's never been in a household with a Black mom before, so it's all very new to him.
For sure.
And so. And like I said, I'm still doing my work because I'll catch myself. Well, white people don't know how to XYZ. And he's like, Siri, you can't. I'm like, but do you? Did you have to learn how to do this when you were 9? Because I've been doing this since I was 9. So it's still, I think a lot of stuff is fresh for my husband because he's very much still learning a lot.
Absolutely. Karmel?
I think it is huge. It's very important. I think one thing I did notice, like with my kids, when I was married to their mom, is she made an effort to learn how to cook for my mom and cook a certain way. She learned how to, just be around my family and how we just moved. Because sometimes it's not. Sometimes they go overboard. They try to do too much.
Sure.
And I try to do everything. Y'all like hog maws, right? I'm like, no, we don't. We
I'm
like
good
that
on
at all.
hog maws.
But she was very good at just watching my family and how we interacted and how we got along. And then as I was teaching the kids different things and part of our culture and being Black and even teaching kids about melanin and stuff like that, she just paid attention. And then she would do her own research. I remember coming home one day, she said, when my daughter said, Mom said, we're superheroes. Like, why? She said, because we absorb the sun and melanin and all this stuff.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, you kind of are. Yeah, you're different. And so I appreciated that about her, how she was just really just trying to watch me and my family and then kind of come alongside and support that. Not like I'm gonna do this big thing and like show you how much Black I can learn and be. Right. So I think it's very important. And yeah, again, and there's no reason not to nowadays. There's so much out there you can absorb and learn and pick up. If you're not, you just don't want to.
Do you think it's important when you're raising specifically half Black children to emphasize that the world will just see you as Black?
Absolutely. Because even if they don't, other people do. Yeah. And code switching is another topic that
whole another podcast.
It is. Yes. That comes up, the ability to be able to talk to anybody and make that work. I think my son's learning that now. Oh, you talk to them different than you talk to this person. Oh, different dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Different community.
Yeah.
Man, code switching is real.
Yo.
Yeah, That's funny. That's funny.
Especially in gigs and things like that. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
It is.
It is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely exhausting. Yeah, I've often told my kids, a drop of chocolate in a glass of milk is chocolate milk.
Yep. Yep.
That's it.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It is. It's the one drop rule,
Yeah.
plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also the thing that I want to make clear to my husband too. Like, yes, our child will be half of you, but they're black in the eyes of society, and I need you to know what it means to raise a black child in this country right now. Like, yes, it may not be the 1950s, it may be clearly easier, but there are still so many things that child's gonna have to go through.
Even in California, where it's liberal, you know, it's what, marriage was banned till like the 50s or something like that, or 40, late 40s, like, not that long ago.
People act like it was 5,000 years ago. Like, I'm like,
get
it.
My mom was a babe, like,
right?
Yeah.
My parents are still alive and
people
went through
alive
all of
went
that.
through
Like,
that,
come
right.
on,
right?
They really want to act, but
It's
then they
not
also
new.
want to act like slavery was the only thing that happened.
Correct.
Like, slavery ended. It's like, yeah, but what about Jim Crow? What about all this? Like, y'all forgetting all of these things.
There's
Again,
so many,
another podcast. Another topic. So what advice would you give to people that are in interracial relationships and are having a difficult time just, expressing themselves or having conversations with their partner, or they're getting animosity from people from the outside?
Suck it up. For real.
Yeah.
Ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Don't mess around, because it's the entire society is affected by it. Every single relationship contributes to the narrative. So suck it up. Truthfully. Learn.
Yeah.
Learn. It's so important.
I think I was gonna say the same thing. Like, if you really care about this person enough, just do the work. It's just and there's no two ways around it. And yeah, ask the questions. Being around their family, I know friends who have interracial relationships. So we just don't go to their house. That doesn't change anything. Like, they're still gonna be there. The house is still there. The people still there. Like, you.
That's funny.
You need to go. Like,
yeah.
What does that do? I can't imagine going to sleep and just thinking, like, during like holidays or situations where you should be at that other person's house, and you're just not gonna go.
Yeah.
And then to be real, like, honestly, before you even get down that road with someone, look at, is this something I want to go through?
Right.
Like, is this really, like, because I know some cultures, like Black and Mexican racial, it's not really a big deal.
Right.
Right.
But maybe Black and Asian might be a hard thing for
Yes,
you, or know, whatever. So really look at this. Is this something I need to, like, really want to go through? And then, if I've never felt like any person that was worth my time wasn't worth more of my time.
Right.
Good advice. Well, before we go, Siri, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast and then the work that you do as well?
Sure.
Please.
So my podcast is the Kinda Hippie, Kinda Hood podcast. And the name is pretty much geared around the fact that I grew up in Iowa and assumed to be not a very progressive or diverse community. But I grew up kind of thinking it was, because my personal circle, I got to experience a lot of religions and different races. And so I thought, hey, it is. And so when I moved to LA 100 years ago, my world was kind of flipped upside down, because I realized how much of a bubble I was in. And so in my experiences in LA, I wanted to be sure I had a platform to talk about all of the different things I've experienced as a Black woman, as someone who does things that aren't traditionally Black things. Agriculture and gardening is very important to me, and I think people often forget the one thing that everybody is connected to is food and music. And so those are the two things that kind of fuel my life. And so I find it very important to say, hey, no, you guys, actually, we are connected. Here's why. These are the things that contribute to it. And so I spend my time gun flapping about that kind of stuff.
Love it. And where can people find you?
Everywhere. Social media at Siri L. And my podcast is on Spotify, iTunes, Google, all of those places. You can find me everywhere. Can't get rid of me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. And we will talk to you next week.
Peace.
Bye.
And this episode of We Need to Talk is brought to you by Black Brew, the darkest, richest, boldest coffee anywhere.